Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Weekly Awakening podcast. It is your host, Cosmic Colleen, and I'm back with another interview episode. I know you guys are proud of me because I have been coming in strong with these at the end of this year, and I'm going to finish out this episode with my guest, Luna, who is in British Columbia right now. Say hello, Luna.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. It is 11 a.m. there, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, how's your Monday morning going for you?
Good. Yeah, not nothing too eventful yet, but we'll see where the day goes.
Okay, good. All right. So I wanted to bring on to finish out this episode another astro babe. And I think we found each other, I don't know who first, but on astrology. And I really love everything about Luna's vibe. And like dark, mysterious, eccentric, and we're talking about her placements. And I think just by saying this, you might get an idea, but you'll definitely see her pictures and stuff on my social media. We got a Pisces sun, Scorpio rising, and a Leo moon. So yes. So with Scorpio risings, those that have been listening to my show know that the eclipse season has been happening and now we're pretty much done with that. How did this play out for you?
Oh my God. I'm like, we're getting real personal.
We're just jumping right there.
Well, the first set of eclipses, because it's falling into my first and seventh house, which is first house, house of self, seventh house, like your partner and your love life and stuff like that. And also being on the Taurus Scorpio axis, having to do with my physical body, but also how I make money and how my partner makes money.
Yeah.
So first round of eclipses, I basically felt like I was dying. I was like, is this the end of my life? Leo rules the back. So my back started like acting up and I was having this like psychedelic experience where I realized that I had to start dedicating myself, to getting stronger in my body, which I think is a very first house eclipse transit, where I'm needing to actually like really dedicate and focus on like creating a new body.
Yes.
So I have been doing that because I'm a circus artist and a dancer. So this stuff is pretty big in my world. And then also just things with finances with my partner and how we make money and just different themes of our relationship coming up and never having any like worried about breaking up. Like we've been together for 6 years and he's the love of my life. But definitely like navigating some changes and just like the biggest portal ever. So yeah, I'm really grateful for astrology because I feel like it's really helped me understand what is happening, why it's happening, and when it's going to end. So a lot of times, when I'm teaching students about astrology or whatever is, I really feel that it's not something that's like for fun anymore. It's actually almost like a lifeline, and it's actually a lifestyle of understanding my life and how to navigate all of the times. And so when I'm going through things that are more challenging, I actually feel like a deep sense of trust and peace and knowing that it's going to end and it's just a transit and this is what I need to do. And this is the positive effects and this could be the negative effects and that it's just all part of the greater story unfolding.
Wow. You just said that so beautifully. Like I almost said I wish I had that on recording, but I do. And like, I agree. What I love is just knowing that eventually eventually things cycle out and they change and they shift, and the planets, and watching that in your daily life, you really do gain such a trust with the universe as you're following it and gaining that awareness and watching it ebb and flow through the cycle of life.
Totally. I'm super grateful, especially recently. I've been studying astrology obviously for many, many years, but something switched recently where I'm just like, this is literally saving my life.
It is. I mean, it's like such a tool that has been around for a very, 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 very long time that people have used, to understand their life, our ancestors, a very long time.
Totally. I mean, it's the language of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who care to understand the language of the universe, it is the closest thing that I've experienced that is that direct connection to God that actually provides a really grounded explanation. And, I have my sun conjunct Saturn in Pisces.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm very much looking for a grounded sense of spirituality and why things manifest in the physical with this metaphysical. So it really helps me.
And I feel as
Yeah,
though, well,
it really
first,
helps me.
I feel as though with the Saturn, your sun conjunct Saturn, and with that Pisces, like I'm listening to your circus performance, right? Or not listening, but listening to you talk about that. And all of a sudden I just saw that like this beautiful Pisces poetic art, but also like you have to be sort of like constructive and precise, which is very Saturn. And you are about to start a Saturn return then.
Yes, I am.
How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Well, when I was talking about it with my teacher, he was telling me, he's like, I think you're gonna have a really good Saturn return.
Yeah.
And I have this weird battle between whole sign house system and quadrant-based house systems with Porphyry because I grew up learning about whole sign houses and learning from like an ancient divinatory standpoint. And so I was like, okay, Sun and Pisces, in the fifth house, like that makes sense for me with Saturn there. And then when I looked at my Porphyry, I saw that it was in the fourth house. And I was like, holy shit, like this is crazy. And you'll totally understand this because so Sun conjunct Saturn in Pisces in the fourth house. Before I became an astrologer and a witchcraft mentor, this is what I do full time as my career. I was working in homeless shelters, helping people with substance and abuse and addiction find home.
Wow.
So I literally had a fucking heart attack when I saw that because I was like, geez, like this, like how did I not? No, like this is can be a literal explanation of what someone can do for work. And so that really got me. Wow. And so I'm still like trying to understand because fifth house also makes sense with my creativity and I'm very seen in my self-expression and I have this relationship with children and, so I don't know if that Saturn return is going to end up being more fourth house or more fifth house, but honestly, I resonate with both because I moved to this new town. I lived in Bali for the past couple of years. I randomly came back to my hometown, fourth house, or home country. And I'm really like finding home for the first time in this house that needed so much work done on it. Saturn, needed so much work. And it was kind of like this antique house that just needed all this love put into it. So I really feel like I'm building this foundation. But then if I look at fifth house stuff, I'm like deeply immersed in this creative performance community in this new town. And I'm also working to heal my body and my self-expression. So I'm not
interesting.
Sure, interesting. I'm not sure what the fuck is going on, but I do resonate with both of it. And I know that if, my sun Saturn was in the third house, I don't think I would resonate with that.
Yeah.
And if it was in the sixth house, I don't think I would resonate with that. What is your take on house systems and have you had
okay, not yet. So I studied and really launched into ancient astrology and Hellenistic astrology, so the whole sign house, and I studied with Nightlight Astrology.
Oh, that's
Adam Ellis. Okay, yeah. So then we're on the same, a lot of what you're saying is I know. So then you understand. And so I haven't yet jumped, you know what I mean, into that. I've just sort of put my full focus because for me, it makes the most sense. I have ADHD, which really I like to say I have like 5, Mercury placements. What I've noticed is people with ADHD have a ton of Mercury, one thing I put together. So for me, it really made it simple just to look at it. You know what I mean? Just to see it all and it's not confusing, like one house, one sign, one house, one sign. And it's sort of, it makes sense. So I started studying with him in 2018 and I'm still really in that process, but I'm also open to, as, this is a forever never ending wormhole. I'm open to it. And a quick story, I got this a couple years ago. I had someone make me this painting of my astrology chart and I messaged it to them and I was like, I would like a whole sign, like this painting to be my whole sign chart. And it did not come that, and for like 2 minutes, I was really mad about it. This is like maybe 2 years ago. And I was like, for like a second, I was like, you know what? Okay, I have to trust that maybe this is just showing me the universe that I need to be open of other ways of taking in this information one day.
Well, it's really easy to tell the story that, you have. You're like, when you first find out about astrology, you're like, holy shit, this is me. Like, I've been waiting for this permission. I've been looking for guidance. I've been wanting some support like in my
Yeah.
life. And now I finally got it. So it is kind of soul shattering to be like, well, actually, you're also this. And
Yes.
it's like, what really? And then, I went down deep rabbit holes with Chris Brennan and all these
Yeah.
podcasts about house division, and it's super nerdy, dry stuff, but it's really fascinating. And I think it's the only thing to astrology that does make me a little bit crazy. So I understand why you've, trusted
Yeah.
Adam's whole sign system
And
and
one
just been like, yeah.
And one thing he always says in his classes and teachings is like, keep it simple. You know what I mean? And that's what I think drew me to that ancient, is like keeping it simple, because we can get 1,000 different meanings, interpretations with it simple. And sometimes I think when we start, and now I'm just talking about adding in asteroids and everything else, sometimes I think then you can always sort of grab the answer you're looking for. And it's kind of almost like clouds it up in my vision now. But again, I'm always open to shifting and changing and evolving as I go into this. What got you into astrology? I mean, clearly you've said you've been into a lot of things. I'm really interested about this path, this Pisces sun path you have.
Right. Yeah. Me too. Well, I feel like I always resonated with being a Pisces, and I thought that was just how I was. And it's so funny. I met this guy. I was on a very Canadian party. I was at this barn party in the snow, and it just knee deep. This is all very new for me, by the way. 'Cause I was just sipping coconuts like not that
In
long
Bali,
ago.
now you're in the snow.
Yeah, I'm just in this really creative like festival town right
Oh,
now, and
cool.
it's unbelievable. I'm obsessed.
Wait,
But
what's it
anyway,
called?
so
Nelson, British Columbia?
yeah, it's a
Okay.
small town of 10,000 people,
Oh
but
my
it's
God.
literally just, it's like the coolest vibe I've ever experienced. I'm obsessed.
Oh, amazing.
I went to this punk market yesterday. I know we're not going to see the audio or the visual,
Yeah.
but I went to this punk market and I had to buy this little doll. I am like
Oh, that's cute. That is so cute. Here,
I'm
wait, I'm going to
so
take a
obsessed.
picture of it on here. Show it. Oh, that is so cute. I
It's
love
a really
it.
sad pumpkin head with a doll like wearing a black dress. Anyways,
That feels
it's a
very
weird vibe
sun.
here.
That feels very like, sun conjunct Saturn.
Totally, 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 totally. And I have Pluto on my BC line
Oh,
in
wow.
astrocartography. Anyways, so I was talking to this guy on the dance floor. And he thought it was super cool that I was an astrologer, and we're just chatting. And then I asked what his sign was, and normally I can guess, but I got it on the second guess actually.
Oh, good.
He was an Aries, and I said, "Do you know what it means to be an Aries?" And he said, "No, I don't really know. I know it's fiery, and I know it's intense and stuff." And he's like, "But that's obviously me, because like I've been an Aries my whole life." And I was like, wow, this is so interesting that this person just totally resonates with being an Aries, and he actually has no idea what it means. And that's kind of what I felt my whole
Yeah,
life.
interesting.
I learned that Pisces were sensitive and emotional and intuitive, and I just kind of, that was just what I knew. And I thought that astrology was that. It was kind of just that simple and basic. And I didn't know it was a career. I didn't know what was going on with the horoscopes, but I knew that there was something there for me when on my lunch breaks in high school, I kept running to the Starbucks on the corner to read the horoscopes about Pisces. And I just felt completely seen and completely understood for the first time. And I actually had a girlfriend in high school who was also very alternative, and she was like, looked way too old to be like 15 or whatever. And like this hipster girl, we would just walk around in Doc Martens and headphones,
I
and we
love
just
it.
hated everybody. But astrology was our best friend, and the Beatles, and and smoking weed. And so we were just studying astrology just for fun, because we just thought it helped us. And yeah, I was basically in social studies class. So I guess this is grade 10. And I had this hippie teacher, and he said, "Oh, we're going to go to the library today to listen to a presentation on astrology." The librarian was an astrologer. And I
Oh,
was
that's
like,
cool.
what the fuck? I remember being
Yeah.
like, holy shit. Because anytime I ever talked about astrology, I was so ridiculed for it.
Yeah.
So we went to this presentation and I'm like taking notes ferociously. I'm like, holy shit, this is it. Like this is everything. And then I actually started seeing the librarian after school. And I was just like asking her questions and I was just like learning about things. I was just obsessed and I didn't even know that there was a whole birth chart wheel. I didn't even know. I was just understanding it all. And so my studies kind of progressed and they went away, and I got ridiculed by boyfriends and my family, so I stopped studying it, studied it in private, went through that whole journey, found out that I was a Leo moon, had a heart attack, found out that I was a Scorpio rising and stopped wearing color. And there's just a lot of permission slips. I started getting birth chart readings, and then so I was working at the homeless shelters, and it was an amazing job, but really traumatizing, really intense.
Yeah.
And I was actually doing what I'm doing now with the homeless clients, which was I was basically doing astrology
Oh,
with
wow.
them. And I would connect with the homeless clients with astrology, and I would guess people's signs, or I would notice that the volunteer who was always helping clean up, I would ask him if he was a Virgo. And then he was, and then he's like, well, can you tell me more about that? And all of a sudden I found myself in this like deeply spiritual service with the gangsters of the world and the rapists of the world and the drug dealers and just the lowest state of society, like in this space. And I found myself in that leadership role. And I was like rummaging in the back of the shelter, like trying to find people's birthdays and their files. And it's like, maybe this is what I'm
Wow.
supposed to be doing, like if I'm getting these little hints and stuff. And so I basically called my brother one day and I was freaking out, and I was like, there's just homeless people everywhere. I just need to, he's an Aquarius. I need to like do something else. He's like, well, that's just because you're in the homeless community. You need to get out of the homeless community and into a community that you resonate with. And I was like, well, what? I don't know. Like, he's like, why don't you just be an astrologer or whatever? Like, you love that stuff. And I was like, holy shit. Nobody ever said that to me my whole life. Like, nobody ever said that I could do whatever I want and be good at it, let alone a family member. And my brother's a doctor.
Oh, shit.
So it was, I didn't really have that permission. And so since that day, I basically was like, yep, this is what I'm doing. Hired Adam with Nightlight Astrology, did the Hellenistic course, a few courses with him, and I just never really stopped. So it's been an incredible journey. And I launched my business in 2020. My first year was like a 6-figure year.
Oh,
I couldn't
amazing.
even
Hell yeah.
believe it. Yeah, it's just been wild. So I truly believe that when we're in alignment, that like money and abundance and love and everything just follows. And actually, like I looked at my chart and I'm like, I have the freaking chart of an astrologer, like,
Yes.
so everything was making sense. So that's my short answer.
I love that. That was a beautiful answer. That really does. Just listening to you talk about working with the homeless clients really does feel like fourth house, like deep in like
Totally.
the dark, and you got the Pisces sort of, drug addicts.
Totally.
And it's interesting with I don't know about you, and you're talking about like, okay, when I found out I was a Scorpio rising, I started wearing black. I don't know about you, but I'm a Virgo rising, Virgo moon, and for until I started like in high school, and I'm a Gemini sun, I really like hated Virgos, right? In high school, like before I started understanding like astrology, and then I realized once I realized like the first house and really the presence that it has on our personality is like, oh, they're me, and they're the parts of me I don't always like either. And that's what was triggering. And now I've learned to like almost resonate more with Virgos than I do Geminis.
That's so funny. I met a girl the other day who was Capricorn sun, Scorpio moon, Gemini rising, and she said the same thing. She's like, I hated all these signs. And she's like, I just have like the worst trio, but and I was like, no, 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 no. Like, I don't know. There's something, I'm a Pisces, right? So I do I've always had love for every one of the signs. I've
Yes.
always seen beauty in all of them. I can always see people's potential. I can always see more expansion. So I particularly haven't resonated with just not liking something, but I totally understand when people are like, oh, like Virgo, like,
Yeah.
or oh, Geminis are crazy. Like, I'm a Gemini, oh shit. Or, and I do think that is like very normal language, but I don't know. I think like there is something so unique that all of them have to teach us. And obviously, I'm sure you know this now.
Yeah.
But, like I remember my sister found out she was a Scorpio moon, and that was really intense for her, right? Like she has a lot of darkness inside that is kind of masked by her Sag sun.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like a lot for her. She's like, I don't really like Scorpio, and Scorpio's like really intense, and I have a lot of darkness and this and that. But over time, she just turned 20 years old.
Aw.
Over time, she loves it, right? And she's like super into it now. So I think we have like evolutions with how we see ourselves, how we see certain signs, how we see other people, and then it kind of all comes together to make a story.
Yeah. And it all, it's funny. My kid's father and I, we both are very mutable and placements, and our kids are very fixed. I'm actually kind of happy with that because I'm like, we were so crazy and chaotic, like our first 30 some years of life. And now I'm like, okay, hopefully my kids are a little more stable. It took us years, or not even years. We never really became stable. I would say we just learned how to function very well amongst the chaos and stability, and maybe it grows with time, And I also kind of think, I don't know if you feel this way, but about the rising sign, and I feel like we almost sort of grow into it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you feel that way too? Like, I feel as though, like, as we get older, as we learn, maybe it's just, I feel that way because once I started to understand the rising, I started to see myself more, but sometimes I feel like we like kind of become it more. Or even after our Saturn return, I've noticed with client, I do hair, so I do astrology with a lot of my hair clients too, and clients I've noticed like almost they embody it more.
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting concept that I have heard a lot of people speak about. What I've also understood about it, I mean, if you think about the rising sign, it's the personality, right?
Yeah.
So it does make sense that over time we would get more in our personalities. But I've also heard it, I can't remember which astrologer had this concept, but it was more that they said it's a mask that we wear to be accepted in society or to be accepted by other people. And I thought that was really interesting because as a child, my mom she loves telling people that I went through a phase where I would only wear pink. And I would just have this obsession. Anything that was pink was mine. And I would wear dresses, and I was very, very girly. And I thought, oh, how interesting. As a little girl, I'm actually embodying the Scorpio rebirth. So I was this innocent, childlike, youthful. And whenever people would say, oh my God, I love color on you so much. Oh, you're so dark. And whenever you have some color, it's so nice. And so that was like reaffirming that I should be wearing color, and I'm embodying this rebirth. And I have seen that a lot with Scorpio risings is they actually dress in only pastel or only pink or only sparkles because they're embodying the rebirth. And as I got older, I realized that I wanted to embody the death. And so I was actually embodying, now I'm very Scorpionic, I have a blackout arm and, I'm completely covered in tattoos that are very mysterious and gothic and dark. I literally have witches on me. I love that. And so I think that we can evolve, right? So what is interesting too is that people don't really talk about that with Scorpio rising, is like they don't really recognize that there is that like Gemini there's that duality. There can be like the either or, there can be that darkness or that light. So I think it really depends on the rising sign and how we relate to it and how we grow into it. Because a Virgo rising child is definitely going to be different than a Virgo rising adult. Does that make sense?
Yes. I feel like when I was a kid, I have a Gemini Mercury, and I feel like my Gemini was very present, very,
Oh my God, yeah.
On top of all of that. And every Scorpio rising I've known personally has all had black hair. I will say that. And maybe when they're younger though, did you try a different hair color in high school? Like something brighter or like highlights?
Like half and half hair.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I had pink hair, and But yeah, my hair, I'm very like dark, which is a Scorpio rising quality, is like
Yes.
dark features, dark skin, dark eyes, dark hair, like a penetrating gaze, regardless if the person is dressing lightly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is very diverse. But you talk to someone who's a Gemini rising and they're like, what the hell does that mean? And you're like, well, maybe at some points you were a little boy.
Yes, yes,
Maybe
right.
at some points you fucking decided to shave your head and call yourself Jasper.
Yeah.
And now you're going back to being Clara. I
Yes.
literally have a friend who's done that. So back and forth. She was Clara, super feminine, decided to shave her head, and then she became Jasper. And then she went back to being Clara, grew out her hair. To me, I'm like, that's Gemini rising.
That is
That's
so
also
Gemini
Gemini
rising.
sun in some ways.
Yes.
So yeah, it is like, it's such an interesting language. And I think that the more, I have Mercury in Aquarius and Venus in Aquarius.
Yeah.
So I'm obsessed with studying people and why people behave the way they do and why they look a certain way. And so I think the more you just know people's rising signs and you ask them questions about their experience, and the more you really start to understand how it all works like that.
Yeah, and I definitely see rising now before I see sun sign. With almost every person I meet, I like, and they're like, that's not my sign. I'm like, well, I bet you it's your rising sign, like some new clients and stuff, like hair clients, not my astrology clients. So let's sidetrack a little bit to some witchcraft, because I know that's also in rituals. I want to talk maybe some good full moon, new moon rituals that you like to maybe can share with our listeners, bring into practice.
Totally. I think it is really important to just in general, like track the moon. You can do that like super simply with just like a moon app, and you can see like what the moon is in, but like today it's in Leo. I'm pretty sure. So then you can kind of like feel the energy.
Is it conjunct your Leo moon?
Well, anytime the moon's in Leo, it's definitely doing something for me.
Yes.
I'm like highlighted like everything. But yeah, it's close. My moon is at 5 degrees. I think it's at 11 degrees. But yeah, so I think that tracking the moon is really important. Understanding I'm assuming people who listen to this podcast understand like the zodiac signs and kind of mixing that. But I think like the relationship to the moon is very unique to you. And I think like the way that I perceive ritual is not necessarily for just purely manifesting or releasing, which a lot of people will just naturally go to, because I think it's a nice framework. It's a nice framework if you want to manifest on a new moon and you write your intentions and you relate it to the astrology. Okay, let's pretend it's new moon in Gemini, and okay, I want to work on my communication skills and blah blah blah. And full moon, okay, full moon's going to be in Leo or whatever. Let's release any fears around self-expression. I'm going to burn a thing and call it a day. I actually believe that ritual can be done at any time and actually should be more intuitively done rather than focus on the cycles of the moon. And what I mean by that is ritual should feel like a inspirational thing or a thing to help heal, grow, evolve, have clarity, to manifest all of those things, but by becoming aware of what the moon is in, if that makes sense, rather than basing your ritual off the moon cycle. So I think like being naturally in tune with yourself and seeing where the astrological energy is and how that relates to you is just a bonus. But yeah, so for me, like ritual space is a very intuitive experience that I do teach people how to get into. But basically what I do in ritual space is really things that are really quite ugly and things that are actually not super accepted in society. And they mix a lot of embodiment practices. So,
would you be willing to share any of them that you're comfortable with?
Totally.
Okay,
totally.
cool.
So
don't leave us hanging.
So let's say, I'm trying to think of something that would be more intense. Like, let's say my partner expresses that he's interested in a woman. or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And that's all, he's just like, and that like brings up a lot in me, that just like, I'm like, holy shit. And so all of a sudden I start to feel, am I worthy enough? Is he going to leave me? Who's this woman? Like, she's not even that pretty. And just like, whatever comes up for me in that process. And then I would be like, okay, I would look to the astrology. Okay, I see that the moon is in Scorpio, or sorry, it's in Cancer in the 8th house for me. And so I know that, okay, so I am actually, there's going to be themes of intimacy, themes of merging, themes of Scorpio houses mixed with my emotional safety of the day. So what do I do for ritual space? I would go into my room. I would make sure I'm alone, I'm safe, whatever. I put on candles, incense, music, and I would see what happens. So whether that is meditating or, crying, pulling tarot cards, oracle cards, journaling, screaming into a pillow, dancing, maybe I'm dancing and I start crying, then I'll continue to dance and release that. Or maybe it's like rolling around on the ground and embodying like shame and being not beautiful enough or whatever it is. But there's like an actual process of looking at the thing, like really like looking at it, making intentional time for it, and then moving through it and receiving messages from the divine, whether it's through channeling and embodiment, whether it's through tarot and oracle cards, whether it's through astrology, whether it's through journaling, the higher self, whatever, and actually integrating that. Like not just being like, okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. Like figured it out. It's actually this like, I'm listening to you and thank you. Thank you for this message. Thank you for this growth. Thank you for this clarity. And I'm going to keep going. And that process, nobody really taught me that. I was actually just doing it. And I realized that that was a form of witchcraft, because a form of witchcraft is actually reclaiming your personal power, being in alignment with the cycles of the universe and using magic. So that's what I would recommend.
I love that. I really do. And I love how you said just like, yeah, taking the moment, not just waiting for the cycle. Yeah, see what's happening that day in the astrology world, but like just, taking that ritual with whatever shows up in that moment, and that's really is truly in alignment with just the planets. And I guess that's in some ways what I do as you're talking. I'm like, okay, I in a quote unquote doing it right? I mean, I've been doing, different rituals for many years, but to myself, sometimes it is just that. And I would just be like, oh, it's just the Gemini, I'm all over the place. But a lot of times I'll just sort of go like where, just like you said, I enter a room, light some candles, get comfortable, and then just allow whatever comes up, whatever process, that's what I work with. And I think, and I love, and again, your work, what's your Mercury in? Because you're very good at like explaining things in a very elegant, but like, I don't know, I love the way you say things, the way you describe and talk about things.
Thank you. I have Venus and Aquarius conjunct Mercury and Aquarius in the 3rd house.
Okay. Oh, and in the 3rd house, communication. Okay. Well, you do a very good job at getting things across and explaining things very well. And in a very, like, again, like I said, like almost like a very elegant, deep way.
Oh, thank you. I'm very proud of my Mercury in the 3rd house. I think it's what makes me very intelligent, and also with people, that social dynamic. But no offense to the Mercury and Pisces people, but I've had like jokes of just being super grateful to not have Mercury and Pisces. Because I think it can be like a little bit
complicated,
overly mystical.
Yeah.
And that I'm really happy to actually have more of a scientific and nerdy and intellectual approach to life. As much as I love the Pisces archetype, Mercury and Pisces is a bit more.
Yeah. Well, I would say with my Mercury and Gemini, I love it. But as you know, Mercury and Gemini, I can be very like either to the point, or I'm really not fully explaining something. I'm explaining half of it in my head and half of it out of my mouth. And I'm like, so, or I'll be, like we said, we kind of talked about that Mercury a little bit. I can be super into something, which is a very Mercury way. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whatever, I don't even care anymore. On to the next thing, and that sometimes I love it, but also, and it's what I'm so interested in people and the movements and the mind and how that works. But sometimes it can be really hard to like hold on to things, including words. My best thing is talking, but it also can, sometimes my mind will take over and get lost.
Right. I mean, that sounds like getting into the body, right? That sounds like embodiment practices
Huh.
because Gemini is at home, or Mercury's at home in Gemini sign, but Mercury in Aquarius is actually exalted.
Yeah.
So there can be different levels of understanding the mind. And I think that that's what's so amazing about astrology is that when you can understand how your mind actually
Yes.
operates, that's what creates transformation with astrology, which is so amazing, is the sheer understanding of what you're working with, your karmic placements, whatever it is. That's what actually creates the transformation, is knowing like, okay, this is my Mercury in Gemini. How am I going to work with this? It's awareness. If we bring it back to like meditation or monks or whatever, like it's awareness. That's what astrology helps to define.
Yes, and so many good feelings, not just good feelings, but changes and shifts and vibrations help just from awareness. Sometimes I'll have clients be like, why do you want to know? And I'm like, you don't even understand the peace and freedom that can come from knowing. And once you know that, you'll want to walk a path of self-awareness, however it looks. Now, why'd you move to Bali? From Canada to Bali, back to Canada. How is Bali? I feel like I would love that little Pisces sun transition.
Oh, yeah. My Pisces life has been very nomadic. So I had been to Bali before, but actually I was paying attention to the transits in 2020 and I was pretty nervous. And I was with my partner in Victoria and I said, we need to get out of here before November 17th because something's going to happen here. And I think
Wow.
it's going to be a second lockdown. I don't want to be here. And so I was building my business and I got the right connections. And so I ended up moving to Bali during the pandemic because I wanted to escape the vibes. I was not into the vibes. I was like, can't handle this energy.
Yeah,
Too
totally.
fear-based.
I totally agree with
I'm going
you.
somewhere else, like peace. And I always wanted to live in Bali. And so November 17th hit, we traveled to Bali around like November 11th. November 17th hit, they announced a second lockdown on that
Wow.
day in Victoria. So I was super happy to be in Bali and we lived there for the past couple years and it was amazing. I really like, wow, I just got everything I needed from it. Like, really wanted to live out that tropical lifestyle and really just created the most unbelievable sisterhood and friendships and entrepreneurs and just have this like really fun unbelievable lifestyle, never needing to make my own food and having cleaners around the house and just being in villas all day and pools.
Damn.
And, it was so fun, but there's also a lot to Bali that people don't see and don't know on Instagram and stuff like
What's
that.
that? What's that side?
Oh God, don't get me started.
A
I
couple
actually
cliff
do
notes.
I do a big rant about it. I did an episode on my move from
Yeah.
Bali to Canada on my podcast.
Yeah.
My podcast is called Words Are Spells, in
Words or
case anybody's
spells. Oh yeah. We'll make sure we get all
um,
those details.
if you like me ranting, there's a lot of that.
Listen to your
So
poetic voice. Yes.
oh my gosh. So I mean, there's so much like, you don't really walk around in Bali. And I know that sounds weird, but I took for granted like walking. So you're always on a scooter just because it's actually just more
Interesting.
safe and efficient to just constantly be on a scooter.
What do you
So
mean safe?
I mean, there's stray dogs on the
Oh, really?
roads. There's just like people literally everywhere. There's trash. It's dirty. Sometimes it's just torrential downpour of rain,
Oh shit.
or it's rice fields, and it's like, you're scooting everywhere. It's
Wow.
just the lifestyle. Like you go to a restaurant down the street, you're just gonna bring your scooter. So, yeah, I was kind of getting annoyed with the scooter lifestyle. Everybody just getting in accidents and my friends ending up in the hospitals. And it's just really sketchy. Like your life is in fucking danger the second you
Wow.
get on that bike. Like, yeah, lots of people don't
And
wear
are people
helmets.
just driving like crazy everywhere?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no rules. Yeah, there's no rules. People are going down the wrong street. They're going down one way is the wrong way. I mean, I'm super guilty of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think like Bali is actually like a super safe place. Like it is really, really safe. But the most dangerous things there, I would say, are the nature. So like the earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunami potentials. And I would definitely say that the cops are really unsafe.
The cops?
Yeah, they're
Oh
very
shit.
unsafe.
Really? Like
Yeah.
just crooked cops?
Yeah, they just try to like, pull you over and take your money, or
Oh
they'll
shit.
bribe you, or they're just sketchy. I definitely like ran away from the cops many times. I'm like, not today. Like,
There
and I
you
know that
go.
sounds like crazy, but that's actually like what you're supposed to do. If anybody travels to Bali, don't stop when the cops try to stop you. Just keep
Damn.
going.
Just keep going.
Just keep going.
What are the jails
They
like? Or
want
do they not really throw people in jail? They just sort of like, oh, whatever.
They just try to get your money. But if you're
Okay.
being like sassy and weird, then anyway, so that's like, yeah. And so like the weather is so intense if you're there in rainy season. It is like you can't even imagine. Like I remember sleeping so many nights just being absolutely petrified because it sounds like there's gunshots like in my room, and it's just the thunder and the lightning, and you're just flooding, and it's, and then you wake up in the morning and everything you own is moldy, like everything you own. And I remember I went to go record a podcast episode and I was like, are you serious? My freaking microphone wire was covered in mold.
Oh
And
my
I was like, I
God.
can't do this just because the humid
Yeah. You don't
temperature.
even think about any of that. Definitely none of that is on Instagram about Bali. None of that.
Exactly. And there's like, the dark side of the
Yeah,
influencers,
of
and,
course.
everybody's just on their phone all the time, and people are just like, yeah, the
They're
Russian
like,
models are out, like they're out.
is it expensive once you're there, like to do things and live, or it's not too bad?
It depends where you live. Like
Oh, interesting.
obviously Bali's a third world country
Yeah.
and it has that tropical lifestyle, but it's definitely cheaper. It depends. Like if you want to live more local Balinese style, like in like a shitty little villa, like yeah, it can be cheap, but I live in BC now. It's one of the most expensive places in the world.
Oh,
But yeah, when
yeah.
I was living in Bali, like I wasn't cooking or cleaning, I'll say that.
It's
I
nice.
never like wore a sweater. I only wore like a poncho from the rain. I never got cold. But there's things to Bali that, like the healthcare system, like you're fucked. Like if
Wow.
you have anything wrong with you, oh, like, you can't really get a doctor, or like you can text a doctor and they'll come to your house for $20, but they'll just like give you weird medication. And so, my digestion was always bad. And there was just like things that I was just like missing Western life. Like you can't really order like packages. You can't really like shop online, and what you got in Bali is like what's there. So that there's
What
stuff
an
that's weird,
experience.
it's an experience. It's also weird because like being in Bali, like the Balinese people are literally angels. Like they are the nicest humans on the planet. And they're probably my favorite culture like ever.
Aw.
Like they're literal angels, but they're also just fully serving you.
Wow.
They're just in fully serving the foreigners. And there's something weird about that for me. And I had like a Balinese woman, a friend of mine, on my podcast, and I asked her about that. I was like, how does it feel to just be in like constant service, And she was like, I love it. Like, I'm so happy that we
Interesting.
have jobs and and I'm just like, oh, you guys are such fucking angels. So, there's some weird shadow stuff. But Bali's amazing, but for me, like I thought it was going to be like my permanent home. I sold all my belongings like when
Wow.
I moved there, and I think now it'll just be like I'll go and visit every year and see my people, and I want to run retreats there for sure. But living full time, you'll go fucking crazy. I don't know what it is. Like it's just so intense.
So you got to use it as an escape. And then it also feels like it probably, for someone with like a Sun Saturn conjunction too, even though it's in Pisces, still a little bit, there wasn't enough. There has to be a little bit. And probably you just, like you said, you got sick of just all of the wishy-washy everywhere, essentially.
Yeah, I think I really actually miss the seasons.
Oh, yeah.
I really like felt like, okay, if I'm an astrologer and I'm a witch, like I want to be experiencing seasons, which I never thought in my whole
Wow.
life, because I've been always chasing the sun my whole life. And I always had this narrative that I hate winter and this and that. And so I really created that story for me. And then during the Sag season, I've just felt like I've expanded my belief system so much of like, winter's not that bad. And, here, this is a ski town, this is a snowboard town, so it actually becomes alive in the winter. And so I'm really rewriting this narrative of like always wanting to be in the sunshine and whatever. And like that was one thing, but there's also like I was really missing like this creativity and the weirdness and festivals and this kind of like darker culture. Like I literally felt like a black sheep, and I felt like everybody in Bali is just dressing in white all the time, and they're like in this goddess like tribal happiness, which is great, for a bit. But I was like, okay, let's not just heal all the time. Let's just like get a little bit darker, get a bit weirder.
Let's just fucking be.
Yeah. So, that was just my experience. I obviously love Bali more than anything, but to be there and only there, it was just, it was time to go. And it was so funny because people were like, thought I was crazy when I was moving to Bali. And then they thought I was crazy to leave Bali. And it's like everything I do, people are going to think it's crazy. So I'm just like, they don't understand. Like, they're like, why would you leave paradise and blah, 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 blah. Why would you move to a third world country? And so I'm just flowing. I love all the flavors of life. And it's just, this has like been the best decision I've ever made to move here almost. So in Canada. So
I love that.
I
mean, I think you're getting and as all my Mercury, I love that. I'm all about just sort of experiencing and shifting and going. And for me, that sounds like quite an experience that, again, you're still like taking in the creative influence from that experience now that you're back in Canada. And I've been in Pennsylvania my entire life, one side of Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, and now I'm outside of Philadelphia, Eastern Pennsylvania. So all I've known is the seasons, and I love them. I mean, there's a time I went through winter, but I realized that winter is like we're meant to go inward. We're meant to go into darkness. We're meant to go alone. And it's scary for a lot of people because then they can't run from themselves as much as you can when the sun is out. And I've also learned to appreciate it because it's like the most quiet and still my life will be that entire year. Once March kicks up, I'm like, okay. And then it's 24/7 after that.
So true. I'm actually doing this year-long course right now. It's like a witch of the year type of thing. It's like living cyclically, something I want to offer as well because it's just so cool. And to hear this woman teaching about the different phases that we're supposed to be in, and like right now is actually this like deep death, it's like this time where we feel like things aren't really put together properly and we're kind of just floating along, and it feels like we might not even come out of the darkness. And that's actually all intentional. That's how we're supposed to be. We're not really supposed to be starting new projects right now or just like manifesting like crazy or just like riding full high. Like that's actually what the summer is for. And this is more of the time of like introspecting and building and planning and going inwards and being slow and methodical and releasing what doesn't serve. And there is that death process that we don't really acknowledge, which is actually pretty gruesome, right? If you think about actual death, it's dark and smelly and it's ugly. And that's kind of the phase that we're in right now, is just this decay. And I think that so many of us desire, oh my God, the rebirth, and oh my God, expansion. But there's this decaying of what once was that we don't really want to let go, or we want more answers, or we want, you know what I mean?
Totally. Absolutely. And we have to feel that, so much of us, it's like a lot of people want to run away and hide that, but so much important of just like processing emotions in general is just feeling that, you got to feel to heal or to let go. And like, we talked about that a little bit on this episode. A few times you mentioned it, but you have to sort of be in it. You just have to be in it and allow the process to unfold. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of thrive somewhat in I don't know. I've learned, and I think it's the Virgo rising, Virgo moon. There's a part of me where I have to like mentally prepare myself. So I already know, I've learned, I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to feel this darkness, I'm going to make sure that I'm sort of in control of it, quote unquote, and I thrive in it, So there's a lot of that, like Virgo is like always trying to mentally figure out and how to also process, right? It's much more guarded than Gemini. And there's this, it's the guarded earth sign. So there's like, okay, I need to know so I can feel sort of grounded in my emotions and feelings. So I'm going to just fucking sit here and tough it out and predict things, So there's I sort of thrive I don't know, a little bit, and I think you do too. I can tell. You're not thrive. Yeah, I can thrive and sit in the darkness. And two, I think
Totally.
both you and I have an idea of how much creative beauty comes after the darkness.
Yes, I think that I actually realize like I really like feeling,
Yeah.
and I'm really like okay with feeling intensity. Like, I actually like think I hit a world record of like crying every day for the past 2 weeks recently. And I actually really like it. It's really weird. Like maybe you call that Pisces, whatever, Scorpio you want, but like there's something that makes me feel like alive. And I'm like, okay, well, if I shut these down or if I pretend they don't exist, like they're just going to take hold of me anyways. So like feeling it at fully is just feels like it's almost like orgasmic.
Yes.
It's like something that is so intense. And I agree with you with what you're saying about your archetypes, because Virgo is the assimilator, right?
Yeah.
Virgo is constantly assimilating information and people and things. Is this well? Is this working well?
Yes.
And actually that's why Virgo rules the digestion, because it's constantly assimilating and deciding what is waste and what is positive and helpful. So that totally makes sense.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my God. This episode is ending now, but I feel like I wish we were talking for another 2 hours. Thank you for me just having this experience with you. Like, I was very tired before my kids woke me up at 5 this morning, and I've been going all day, and I was very tired, but I knew, I can just jump in and talk. But like with you and feeling the energy of this conversation, I personally feel very inspired. I feel very energized. I feel very open. I feel very awake. So thank you for that. And I know my listeners will feel the same. Now, tell everyone about your podcast, where they can find you, what kind of courses and classes you do. Give us all the deets.
Oh, well, thank you so much for saying that. I feel the same. And it's been amazing talking to you. Yeah, I'm mostly active on Instagram. I'm luna.veronica.mystic. If you follow me, please be careful of all the spam accounts.
Oh my God,
they're going really hard on me. My real account, it's pretty easy to understand what it is. I have around 15,000 followers. That's my real account. Just be careful out there. I'll never DM you asking for money.
My listeners get warnings. They get warnings about this because it's crazy. I get hit with it, and I've actually gotten a few of your fake people. And I know, I just report it and then block them. So they're not, and it's really insane. Sorry not to interrupt you, but it's really insane what's happening with all that.
It's just like they're harassing my followers.
It's horrible.
At the same time that this has been happening, I've been seeing like a decrease in my following. So it's just like annoying.
Yes.
But anyways, so yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. I have a podcast called Words Are Spells that can be found on iTunes or Spotify. It's pretty epic. And
I'm going to subscribe right now.
Sorry, say again.
I said I'm going to subscribe right now.
Oh, yay. Don't forget to review, like, subscribe, all the things.
All the things, baby. And what kind of courses do you have?
So I'm actually launching the next round of the Academy of Witchcraft. So this is like going to be super, super amazing. And it's my favorite offering. I haven't done it in a while. So it's super cool. It's for anybody who wants to learn how to be a witch and live a magical life. So I teach about how to set up an altar and be in ritual space and spell casting, the phases of the moon. I teach all of the tarot cards and how to read professionally. And I even teach the basics of astrology. So we have the pre-recorded educational lessons, and then we meet once a week and we do the rituals together. We practice on each other in a coven. So that is going to be launching in January. If you want to know about that, or you just want more information, just feel free to message me on Instagram and just say that you listen to me on Colleen's podcast and you want to learn more. And yeah, or you can go to my website, which is www.lunaveronica.com. But Instagram is the best way, where you sign up for my newsletters, all the things. And yeah, I'm just so happy to connect. Feel free to reach out, just say hi. And I'm a real person behind the scam accounts.
Oh my God, those scam accounts. Oh my God. Well, thank you, Luna. This has been an amazing episode. You have been, again, all those things I just said. I am vibing high. I know everyone who's listening to this episode, when it comes out, which you guys are listening to it right now, you guys will be vibing high. So thank you again for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I love you. Have a good week and goodbye.